Well, hello and welcome to our live coverage of President Park Geun-hye. She is about to depart for Iran for a 3-day state visit. It's going to be the first visit by a South Korean leader to that country in 54 years. So a real huge diplomatic event. You can see President Park Geun-hye already climbing up the steps there onto Air Force One at Seoul Air Base in Songnam, Gyeonggi-do Province. She is going to be heading there for 3 days. This is a huge business trip, in fact. The delegation will be going with her, a big business delegation, as well as, of course, lots of business leaders hoping to secure billions of dollars worth of deals for Korea. Hopefully this can be very productive for the nation in a great many ways, of course. So, yes, you just saw her getting on the plane, and with her, all the journalists and business leaders, over 230 business leaders, not only from the country's conglomerates, but from small and mid-sized businesses looking to get involved in Iran's infrastructure projects now that the country is no longer under some of the toughest international sanctions for essentially abandoning its nuclear weapons program, something President Park Geun-hye might touch upon with the leaders of Iran to try and get some advice from them on what to do with North Korea, because, of course, Iran and North Korea have had somewhat of a strong diplomatic relationship for some time. So we are going to take a look at a report now because, as we mentioned, President Park Geun-hye is about to take off for Tehran for the first bilateral summit talks with Iran's leaders in well over half a century. So, like we mentioned, a really historic trip, not only for Korea, but for Iran as well. So our presidential office correspondent, Song Ji-son, who is on the same plane as President Park Geun-hye, traveling with her, is going to run through the itinerary and what we can expect during this short, but hopefully productive trip.
President Park Geun-hye will become the first South Korean president to visit Iran as she departs for Tehran on Sunday morning. On Monday, President Park will start her day with summit talks with President Hassan Rouhani. Revving up economic cooperation will be the key. Diversifying trade items is among the goals, in addition to recovering their bilateral trade volume to the level before the international sanctions were imposed on Tehran. The two sides are likely to ink multiple deals that could help Korean companies take a greater part in Iran's infrastructure projects aimed at rebuilding its economy. President Park and Rouhani will also agree on ways to expand cooperation in areas like health, culture, and ICT, and discuss a range of regional and global issues, including North Korea's nuclear threats. Following summit talks with Rouhani, President Park is also expected to meet with Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, which could also help set the bigger picture for relations between Seoul and Tehran. On Tuesday, President Park will attend business events prepared to better help Korean entrepreneurs enter the Iranian market of 80 million people, which Seoul has tagged the last blue ocean of the Middle East.
사상 최대의 경제 사절단이 동행하고 1대1 비즈니스 상담회도 대규모로 열릴 예정으로 있습니다. 이번 기회에 기업들이 좋은 사업 기회를 찾을 수 있도록 철저하게 이것도 준비해 주기를 바랍니다.
As is customary now, President Park will also encourage Korean nationals living in Iran and attend a culture exchange event showcasing Korea and Iran's traditional assets before leaving Tehran on Tuesday. Song Ji-son, ARIRANG News.
Now, let's take a look at the past, present and future of South Korea's ties with Iran. And it's fair to say that relations have been on somewhat of a roller coaster ride over the decades. They started well in the early stages, worsening sharply when Tehran was in the international wilderness for its nuclear activities. But now the future looks pretty bright. Whether it lasts is up for debate, though, especially considering Iran's long friendship with North Korea. Kwon So-ah reports.
Given that it's not only the first time President Park visits Iran, but the first ever trip by a South Korean leader since Seoul-Tehran relations were established 54 years ago, there are high expectations a new chapter in bilateral ties will open. Generally speaking, the two countries had a good relationship in their early years, even creating a Seoul Street in Tehran and a Tehran Street or Tehran Valley in Seoul, some 6,500 kilometers apart. After the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the friendship deteriorated and would not be restored until decades later, as Seoul supported the UN Security Council's efforts to terminate Tehran's nuclear program. But since the landmark nuclear deal last year lifted international sanctions off Iran, Seoul was one of the first to revive relations, quickly sending its foreign minister to Tehran, the first visit of its kind in 14 years. But there are concerns about trying too hard.
We have our traditional, old friends and allies in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, and Israel as well. And they are worrying about the, emergence of Iran in the international world.
Also, there is the fact that North Korea and Iran have been very close, not to mention their cooperation in developing nuclear material.
I just hope that let us give a chance to those young, supporters of reformist faction so that they can have, bigger voice against those, clerics, the hardliner clerics who wanted to keep their connections with the North Korea.
It remains to be seen whether South Korea and Iran can enjoy a good partnership in the years to come. But Seoul's ambassador to Iran suggests the two build a multifaceted relationship, boosting not only economic ties, but also political, cultural, and many more fields of cooperation. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Now, in some of the other news today, the foreign ministers of China and Japan held a rare bilateral meeting on Saturday in an effort to improve their strained ties. Although there are a number of issues the two countries are deeply at odds over, one area they found common ground on was North Korea. Cheonggukjang reports.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi hosted a bilateral meeting with his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida in Beijing on Saturday. It's the first time in 4.5 years that a Japanese foreign minister has visited Beijing for such talks. The two nations have had a difficult political history stretching back over 100 years, but the most recent issues have been around conflicting claims over a group of uninhabited islands in the East China Sea. Although tensions have been thawing, Beijing did not exactly welcome Kishida with open arms.
As the Chinese saying goes, we should make a judgment based on not only what people say, but also what they do. Today, I'm ready to listen to your opinion about how to improve China-Japan relations. And I'm also going to see whether the Japanese side will sincerely match its words with deeds.
China are also said to be suspicious over a ruling in Japan last year, which allowed its military to fight overseas for the first time since the war. One issue they did find common ground on was North Korea. Both sides agreed that the regime's recent provocations were of serious concern. North Korea has defied recent sanctions imposed by the UN by carrying out a series of missile launches, with rumors of a possible fifth nuclear test starting to emerge. Kishida stressed that the two countries need to work together in order to adopt measures that stop Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions. The Japanese foreign minister continued his charm offensive, meeting with the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang and Chinese State Councillor Yang Jiechi, with further meetings between the two countries being planned for the near future. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
Now, South Korea's export figures for April have been released, and they have fallen again by over 11% compared to the same month last year. After facing a year-on-year drop of almost 19% in January, the biggest in over 6 years, the numbers did look like they were recovering, as you can see on the graph there, with a single-digit drop of just over 8% in March. But the latest figures have really thrown a spanner in the works, dispelling that idea. Export figures have been shrinking every month since the beginning of 2015, and this is a big concern for Korea's economy, which relies so heavily on its exports. Imports also fell by almost 15%, which has also seen negative growth for 16 months now. Now, the fermented soybean paste, known as cheonggukjang, is probably most well known for its pungent smell. But it's also known for its health benefits, and Korean researchers now have scientific evidence to back that up. Park Se-young has the details.
Cheonggukjang, a traditional Korean fermented food, is not only rich in taste, it's also said to help prevent lifestyle diseases and strengthen the immune system, though there was never strong scientific evidence to back that up. Now, a team of Korean researchers believe they have proof of cheonggukjang's ability to inhibit allergic reactions like atopic dermatitis. The soybean paste contains gamma-polyglutamic acid, which activates T cells that suppress the immune system. Substances generated by the T cells attack and remove the cells that trigger allergies.
This allows for accurate inhibition of allergic mediators and activation of natural killer T cells, which suppresses the development of basophils.
When mice with allergies were treated with this inhibitor, the allergens in their bodies were cut by half within an hour. After 1 day, the allergens were reduced by 90% and the effect continued for 3 days. This finding, published in the scientific journal PLOS ONE, is expected to contribute to the possible development of new medicines using food ingredients. Park Se-young, ARIRANG News.
Well, that's pretty much all we have for now. Thank you for watching our special news report on President Park Geun-hye's trip to Iran. She has, or is just in the process of departing for the Middle Eastern country on what will be a historic state visit to that country, Iran. And we'll have more updates during our next scheduled newscasts. They are coming up at 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. Korea time on this Sunday. Also, don't forget that we will be broadcasting President Park's press conference live. That is with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. That will be live and interrupted with English language translation on Monday afternoon at 3:40 p.m. Korea time. That will be anchored by our very own Moon Gon-young. And as always, we do have all the latest on our website, arirang.com/news, and on our smartphone application. All you have to do is search for Arirang TV. You'll find all our news and our latest TV programs on there as well. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday or Saturday night, wherever you're watching us. Goodbye.